Hello friends, welcome once again. Today I will start another new module, module number 10, that is group behavior. This is another new module as the title of the module implies, group behavior. In this section I am going to discuss about the structure of the groups, definition, how and why people join groups, what are the different kind of groups, and how groups are helpful in understanding human behavior when it comes to discrimination, when it comes to motivation, when it comes to in terms of cooperation, competition, leadership, and how different groups emphasize on various goals of an individual and all together that enables members to achieve a common goal. So, before getting more into the detail of group behavior, let us first define that what is group, basically introduction to groups. So, groups can be defined as collection of two or more interacting individuals who maintain stable patterns of relationships, common goals, and perceive themselves as being a group. Perceive themselves as being a group means that they consider themselves as member of the group, as part of the group. They identify, they acknowledge, they realize their roles and responsibilities, what they have to perform, so as to make the group highly functional and effective. So, the study of group behavior can be helpful in understanding decision making, behavior, attitudes, opinions, interrelationships, discrimination, communication, perceptions, and attributions. We are already well versed with these terms in terms of interrelationships, attitudes or change or formation, discrimination, communication, perceptions, and attributions. But when we are talking about group behavior, it is important to know that Kurt Lewin, a social psychologist, popularized this term group and gave a very normative view about what this group meaning stands for. So, he identified the dynamics of group, which aims at understanding that how groups are formed, what are the roles and responsibilities of every member, how groups are structured in terms of roles, norms, status, cohesion, in terms of process that makes the group highly functional, and at the same time how members identify themselves with the group so as to achieve a common goal. So, Kurt Lewin was the first person as a social psychologist who identified the term group and understand the dynamics of group. The study of group emphasizes on the other process which is mentioned in the normative view of Kurt Lewin, that it emphasizes group leadership, motivation, member participation, and overall cooperation. It also focus on various aspects of group process in terms of interrelationships, interpersonal relationships, social relationships, conflict resolution, communication, conformity, deviance, and group therapy. Here group therapy means that there are different kind of groups that are structured for specific tasks in terms of providing support and counseling to different members of the group or community who seek some help and support to overcome their psychological problems. So, this is how any group functions based on the processes. So, these processes, if we talk about social relationships, interrelationships, conflict and resolution, communication, conformity, cooperation, competition, deviance, and group therapy, these are the natural courses of behavioral pattern which evolves in any group, and how these processes are being executed or resolved at every point of time to make the group highly functional and effective. Therefore, group can be defined when two or more than two people come together with common objectives, who are stimulating to each other, have common loyalty, participate in common activities, and have a recognized structure. If the group is not structured, then definitely the group process cannot be streamlined. Group process here means any conflict that has evolved in any group, then how it will be resolved. If any discriminatory attitude has been formed by some members of the group, then how those discriminatory behaviors will be lowered down within the group, that will all affect the functionality of the group and its members. So, group plays a very important role when it comes to attitude formation, conflict resolution, participation and leadership. But the most important question and discussion to make any discussion is that why people join groups. It is not only about meeting a common objective. Anybody can join any group or form any group to form to meet a common objective or a shared goal, and people can disband. But there are some psychological needs of an individual which forces a person to join a group while satisfying those needs. So, those needs can be in form of security, it can be in form of status, it can be in form of affiliation, it can be in form of power, and it can be in form of goal achievement apart from achieving shared goals. So, if we talk about that people join groups to have security, it pertains that joining a group individuals can reduce the sense of insecurity of standing alone and form stable relationships that keep members functioning. Everybody requires the social and psychological support. One finds difficult to stand alone and make the objectives achievable. For that, every person, every individual requires that support to overcome that sense of insecurity, and people are triggered to form social relationships or maintain interpersonal relationship either at social level or at professional level, be it workplace, so that that sense of insecurity can be reduced, because there is sense of affiliation, there is sense of belongingness with whom we can relate or identify. The other reason is status. Inclusion in a group that is viewed as important provides recognition and status for its members and provide feelings of self-worth and high self-esteem. We tend to have aspirations to join any particular group because of its success story, where people understand that perception of a successful group can be made on the achievements, on the targets they set, how they achieve, and what opportunities they offer to grow personally and professionally. That gives a chance, a platform for any individual to maintain that status and raises his or her self-worth and self-esteem. The more an individual is associated with any high status group where he or she can avail maximum opportunities for his self growth or personal or professional growth, then definitely that person will have high desire to join that particular group in order to maintain a status. The other is affiliation. The groups can fulfill social needs and satisfy their sense of belongingness. The more we affiliate, the more our affective needs are being satisfied. The more our emotional needs are satisfied, there is more expression of or sharing of emotional problems and needs which any individual cannot do all alone. For this, a sense of affiliation is being satisfied, which is only possible when a person joins any group. So, satisfying the sense of affiliation makes a strong ground that why a person joins a group. Power. What cannot be achieved individually often becomes possible through group action. There is power in numbers. When a person initiates any task which makes him possible to perform it all alone, but once receiving all the support from the other members of the group, gives him not only all the psychological support, but he also garners, solicit all the feedback, all the resources to perform or achieve that goal, which is only possible when a person tries to affiliate or identify or relate with the other members. And as soon as the support increases, the power is also increased, which helps a person to achieve the goal. So, this is the reason that why a person joins group. And the most important reason is goal achievement. When it takes more than one person to accomplish a particular task, there is need to pool talents, knowledge or power in order to complete a job. In such cases, management will rely on formal groups. For instance, any committee can be formed where different members come together who are having different expertise and a common task can be resolved. One person or one member within the group or committee can have a technical expertise, the other member can have the financial or accounting expertise, the other member can have the sales and marketing expertise. When all the talent pool, knowledge and powers or authorities are pulled together, then it makes the group so strong enough to achieve a common goal. That is why people join groups, to satisfy not only their their professional goals, but they also have psychological needs through which they can satisfy and maintain a sense of well-being within themselves. All right. This was a general discussion that why people join groups, right. Based on these aspects only, certain theories have also evolved which explain that why people join groups. Various psychologists have come up and have coined different reasons, have given theoretical foundations that why people join groups. So, based on these theoretical foundations, 4 theories can be discussed and have a huge impact on human behavior when we talk about that why people join groups. So, these 4 theories which are being displayed on this slide, that is propinquity theory, exchange theory, balance theory and humanist theory. These 4 theories are one of the most famous theories which explain that why people join groups. If we talk about propinquity theory, this theory emphasizes that individuals affiliate with one another because of spatial or geographical proximity. Spatial, geographical or physical proximity. Here this means that when people are sitting close to each other in office, or 2 kids sitting next to each other in the classroom, they tend to experience or gain more opportunity to talk to each other or interact with each other. Based on this frequency of interaction, people tend to come close to each other, and they maintain a sense of proximity or belongingness with each other. This is the base of propinquity theory, that whenever individuals who come together and interact and affiliate because of spatial or geographical proximity, then people join group. They automatically form a group of 2 or 4 or more than 4 people within that proximity, and they tend to share their feelings and emotions with each other. For example, in any organization, employees who work in the same area of the plant or office and the managers who are sitting close to one another, probably they have more chances to interact with each other, and they form a group which makes easy for them to interact with each other in day to day life. So, this is the base, that is propinquity theory based on physical or geographical or spatial proximity, that why people join groups. Maybe people are from different diverse backgrounds, but still when they are interacting with each other because of proximity, they tend to form a group. The other is exchange theory. This notion that why people join group is completely based on the reward cost outcome of interaction, that what a person gains from any interaction. So, this theory is completely based on reward cost outcome of interactions, where rewards are from interaction that gratify an individual's need. When we are interacting with the other person, we are sharing our psychological needs, we are satisfying our psychological needs, we are satisfying our emotional needs, and that is a reward. When we are sharing, then we are also getting something in return in form of response, in form of feedback, which is a reward of the interaction that has taken place between 2 people. Now, if that interaction is not fruitful or interaction has not taken place between 2 people, then it can lead to incurring of the cost in terms of anxiety, frustration or fatigue. Because there is no sharing, there is no release of emotions and feelings, and people tend to find difficulty to adjust in that environment or adapt to that environment. So, this is the notion of exchange theory, that why people join groups, because they want to reap the benefits of the of any social interaction, rather pay the cost in terms of anxiety and frustration. Therefore, when it comes to exchange theory, it is not only about reward cost outcome, but it also talks about the propinquity or geographical or spatial proximity, interaction and common interest, which have significant role in exchange theory. That is an added advantage, that 2 people are maintaining geographical proximity, they have common interest, and on top of that they have chance to interact with each other, then it satisfies the purpose of joining the group in form of exchange, that is reward cost outcomes can easily be experienced in that interaction. The other is balance theory, which was developed by Theodore Newcomb, And this theory is based on that people are attracted to one another on the basis of similar attitudes and commonly relevant objectives and goals. This is but obvious that when two people or more than two people have common objectives and goal, they are attracted to each other and they tend to share those goals based on commonality or similarity in their attitudes and behavior. For example, in the diagram, that X will interact with Y based on common objectives, attitudes and goals, and once this relationship is formed, the members strive to maintain a symmetrical balance. It is so obvious, two people or more than two people who have common interests and goals that are attracted to each other, they tend to interact with each other, and all the members have desire to maintain that equilibrium based on similarity, and that becomes a goal, another goal of the group members to maintain that symmetry or balance or equilibrium among all the members because of the similarity in attitude, goals and vision. And this attitude or similarity or balance is maintained ultimately on common attitudes, goals and values, and once this balance tend to get disturbed, then members make lot of efforts to restore that balance. Once imbalance is observed, people make efforts to restore that balance, and sometimes there is so much of conflict that it becomes difficult to maintain that balance and the group tends to disband. So, this is the negative consequence of not making efforts to maintain that similarity of attitudes among members. So, the most important factor about balance theory is that it is not only about similarity in goals, objectives, it is beyond that, that once similarity is experienced, then how that balance or equilibrium is being maintained, how that symmetry is maintained, that requires lot of efforts to satisfy the essence of balance theory, that why people join groups. And the last is Hohmann's theory. George C. Hohmann developed this theory, and according to Hohmann, a more comprehensive theory of group formation comes from the theory based on activities, interactions and sentiments. This is the most common feature in all the theories that we have discussed right now, that is interaction. So, interaction, activities and sentiments, they according to Hohmann work all together in one go. According to this theory, these three elements, activities, interactions and sentiments, they are related to one another, and all these elements work together in any interaction. And how? The more are the activities, the more the person will interact and stronger will be the sentiments. That is so obvious, no doubt people meet together based on common goals or shared goals, but those goals are achieved based on the structure and process of the group, that how the group will function. We decide the roles and norms of every group members, what person will perform which kind of activity. As soon as the activity is being performed, there is a spark of interaction with the other members of the group. As soon as the interaction levels are raised, then ultimately people get associated with the task and with the members, and they tend to channelize the sentiments as well. So, activities, interactions and sentiments all together work all together, and there is a form of relationship among the members based on these three elements. So, the major element that why people join group is interaction, and stronger is interaction, and as persons in a group interact with one another, not only based on propinquity but also accomplish group goals such as cooperation and problem solving. Even any conflict that arises in any group, that requires some efforts in form of activity, in form of any conflict resolution, any new policy or resolution that has to be implemented within the group, so that the interaction is maintained. So, even resolving conflict or gaining cooperation from the other members all require activities. This triggers, this fosters interaction and ultimately leads to sentiments, where people tend to resolve their own sentiments or understand the sentiments of the other members, and they tend to maintain that equilibrium. So, this is the notion of Hohmann's theory, that why people join groups based on three elements, that is activities, interaction and sentiments. According to social psychologists, they have formalized these reasons based on theoretical foundations: propinquity theory, exchange theory, balance theory and Human's theory. Okay. Next comes stages of group development. How group develops? It is not very simple to say that 4 people are together and they form group. No, even people have common objective, shared goals, but people or members as a human being, they are different from each other. We are not at all similar when it comes to human behavior. First of all, human behavior is instrumental in nature. It changes from situation to situation because we are adapting to the new environments. We are identifying some stimulus in the environment which triggers behavior, and we tend to respond or react accordingly. So, no doubt that members come together with common goal or shared goals, but at the same time when people come together, they experience lot of difference of opinion at the same time. According to this difference of opinion, or how this difference of opinion can be rectified or resolved, social psychologists have identified 3 approaches that leads to group development and how shared goals are being achieved. So, according to social psychologists, the first approach was given by Tuckman and Jensen's group development process. Then we have Tubbs system model, and the other is punctuated equilibrium model. So, there are 3 models that have been proposed which talks about the stages of group development, that how when members come together they undergo a process of change and finally the group develops and forms a very structured shape. This is how the group will function. But the most important popular and important approach of stages of group development has been given by Tuckman and Jensen in 1977, where he has described about the 5 stages of group development: forming, storming, norming, performing, and later he added one more stage, that is adjourning. According to Jensen's Tuckman and Jensen's, every member tend to go through this process, or every group of members tend to go through this process of change basically, and ultimately how the group becomes structured and it is in the shape of being highly functional. According to Tuckman and Jensen, the first stage is forming. This is the stage when members come together based on common objectives or shared goals. They are new to each other, they do not have much idea about the other members, but the only common thing is that they have shared goals. They tend to establish ground rules, and it is completely based on mutual interaction, where there is no line drawn about what roles to be performed by which member, how the group will function. There are no boundaries or structure in that group. The only common thing is that members have just share a common goal, although there is lot of anxiety and fear along with lot of excitement and enthusiasm that people are together, some members are together to achieve a common goal. So, this is the first stage of group development, that is forming, where group members are well acquainted and based on mutual interaction they establish the ground rules. Now, here the establishment of ground rules means that they have just formed a platform that how common goal will be achieved. Once the mutual understanding has been established, the group moves on to the second level of stage, that is storming. Once members have established a platform that this is how group will function, or we are here to achieve a common goal, and as soon as interactions are increased among members, then it also leads to another problem, that is conflict. Why? Because when members are opening up with their ideas, opinions and views, then there is a conflict of opinion with other members as well. This leads to conflict, this leads to resentment, and at the same time people are not ready to accept the leadership style as well. Definitely when group has been established, there has to be a person who will act as a leader to guide the group members. Now, every member is qualified in its own way, and it is very difficult for any member to accept any one member as a leader of the group. There is resentment, there is conflict, there is difference of opinion, and at the same time the most crucial part is that there is lot of hostility among members. They tend to express their hostility and there is no control even by the group leader. So, when we are talking about this stage, that when after the forming stage is through, when the group moves on to the second stage of storming, here members tend to communicate but still view themselves as individual rather than a group, because they are still affiliating themselves with their own identity, not with the group identity. With the gradual process of interaction, they tend to merge with the group identity. So, the members here resist control of the leader and show hostility towards each other member. Now, once this storming stage is over and people tend to identify themselves as a member of the group, not as an individual member, they move on to the next stage, that is norming. This is the stage when people realize that their presence and their affiliation is related to the group identity and the group roles. They tend to accept the viewpoints of the other members, they accept the leader, whosoever the leader has been appointed, and they establish the norms that how the group will function. Once these group norms are being achieved, members tend to identify themselves with the roles that have been assigned to them based on their status. Roles based on the expertise, based on the knowledge they have, and the power they tend to accrue within themselves, and how they can use all the pool talented, and how the norms can be followed to achieve the common goal. So, this is the stage norming, which is the most important. If storming is the crucial point, if at this stage the conflict is not resolved, then the conflict tends to disband at this stage only, it will not move further. But if again conflict has been resolved and it moves to the third level, that is the norming, this is the most important stage of group development, where members tend to affiliate each other with the group goal, and at the same time they affiliate or accept the norms that how the group will function. Once the group norms are being identified, the members or the group tends to move on to the fourth stage, that is performing. Based on the acceptance of the norms and identifying with the group goals, people tend to develop trust on each other, there is more flexibility, and hierarchy is of little importance, while leadership is of high significance. When roles are being defined, norms are being established, the group reaches a stage of performing, where members are ready with their roles, members are ready with their expertise, members accept the leadership, there is no authority, and at the same time they are in the full form to perform to the maximum. At this stage only the group goal is being achieved, which is shared by the other members of the group. Once the group goal is achieved based on the performance of the members, the group reaches the stage of adjourning. This is the stage when the performance of the group members are being assessed, and at the same time they are recognized, they are acknowledged, the members' contributions are being respected, and once this achievement is being made based on the common or shared goals, the group tends to disband. Now, this disband is based on respect, on integrity, on acknowledgement and recognition of the contribution of each and every member. Now, when we are discussing about these 5 stages, this appears to be so much direct, very straightforward, but it is a long term process. It is not matter of one day that storming stage will be overcome today and tomorrow we will reach on to the performing stage. It takes months and months that how one stage can be crossed over to reach the another stage, right from forming, storming, norming, performing and adjourning. This is an ongoing process, because any time any person can have a conflict with the idea and opinion of the other, and how every member is being dealt in a very diligent manner by the leader. That is the most important function of this approach given by Tuckman and Jensen. So, this is the approach or model of group development given by Tuckman and Jensen based on 5 stages, that is forming, storming, norming, performing and adjourning. Okay. The other is Tubbs system model. This is a very new approach given by Stewart Tubbs in 2004, that according to Stubb, group development should be considered, perceived as a system, not as a process but as a system, and three basic processes are important when we talk about group development. So, according to Tubb, the input, output and throughputs of the group, all these three elements when worked together, then it leads to some change in the group members that lead to form or that leads to a new formation of the or development of the group. Now, here as the term implies, input is what efforts we put in achieving the task, the output is that what is the consequence of the concerted efforts of all the members, and throughput of a group is all the tools, all the knowledge, all the power, skill, abilities that every person has, and all this when talent is being pooled, it grows through a process, that is the throughput of a group, that how the knowledge, skills and abilities and power are being used in the system to meet the desired goal. So, these are the three most important elements of the Tubbs system model, that is the input, the output and the throughputs of a group. And the most additional thing that is very important in this model is that according to Tubbs, since group development has been perceived as a system according to Stewart Tubbs, then every stage it has to undergo a feedback mechanism. Therefore, additionally, a system perspective allows a group to adapt by learning from their mistakes and through feedback. That means, whatever task has been invested to achieve the goal, then even at that level the feedback mechanism is very active. If it is output, then again feedback mechanism is very active, and even in the throughputs, that what kind of talent has been pooled or power or abilities or skills have been pooled, then again it has to undergo a feedback mechanism. So, there is a feedback mechanism connecting every point within each process, and this feedback allows the group to change based on desired performance outcome. It is not that all the talent has been pooled and we can execute at any point. Which talent, expertise, power, knowledge and ability has to be used at which point of time to achieve the common goal, that requires a feedback mechanism or filtration mechanism, and that will help the group to change their courses of actions from time to time, alter their actions, and in the end achieve the goal. Now, when we are making alterations at every point of time, that point is actually making the group or enable the group to undergo a change, that is an approach to group development. It is not only about stages, that every time feedback mechanism is active and every time the courses of actions are being changed and the group is evolving in a new form. So, this is a theory by Stewart Tubbs that how a group develops. Now, once the system has been established, so Tubbs has identified 4 stages of group development. First is orientation, which we can also relate with the Jensen's model, Tuckman and Jensen's model also. Orientation, that group members get to know each other and they start to talk about the problems and accordingly act on it. This is the first stage based on input, output and throughput. The other is conflict. Conflict allows the group to evaluate consensus. In this stage conflict ends when orientation, conflict allows the group to evaluate ideas, suggestions and help the group to think, and reaches a stage of consensus where conflict is resolved and members tend to give consent and compromise based on ideas and the ideas or opinions of the other members. And once the consensus is being given to every member that how the group will function based on input, output and throughput, it leads to a stage of closure. In this stage, the final result or the decision is announced and group members reaffirm and end the project. Now, there is a lot of difference between Tuckman's model and Tubbs' model. Here input, output and throughput are being considered into the system, and how these three elements are being identified based on these four stages, that is orientation, conflict, consensus and closure. So, the three elements are being put together in these four stages based on feedback mechanism. So, this is a Tubbs system model of group development, and the other model is punctuated equilibrium model. This is another model given by Jersick in the year 1988 and updated again in 1989. This has its own uniqueness, that how a groups develop and what kind of equilibrium is maintained based on intermittent changes that takes place, and finally the group forms its own shape. So, according to Jersick, it was theorized that that group development is similarly characterized by periods of punctuated equilibrium. That means one task has been initiated and maybe halfway through some crisis has evolved, and based on that crisis again a new decision has been taken, the course of action has been changed, and again the group is functioning with some new patterns of actions. Ultimately, the aim is to reach the common goal, and when different phases are being experienced by the group members, then they tend to change themselves accordingly and finally reach the goal. So, in every stage they are maintaining a punctuated equilibrium. Punctuated equilibrium means that one point of action has been determined and then they change another course of action because of some changes in the environment or resources, and they tend to again maintain that equilibrium. So, this is punctuated equilibrium model. So, according to this approach, group formation recognized that group members working to meet a deadline approach the task differently in the first half of their time together than in the second half. As I mentioned just now, that they will initiate to take the action in a definitive way maybe in the when they are halfway through, but when they experience some crisis in the middle, then again they will change the course of action and they try to meet the second half of the group goal in a different fashion. But in every way, be it first half or the second half, they are maintaining that equilibrium based on the required course of action. So, when we are talking about punctuated equilibrium model, in the first half of the phase or in the process of group functioning, groups define their task, they set a mission and it is unlikely to change until the second half of the group's life. Group's life means you are into the group process. So, in the first half everything is defined, the group task is defined, the roles are defined, norms are defined, that every member will function accordingly until and unless they reach the midpoint of the task. As soon as they reach the midpoint, interestingly they encounter some kind of crisis in the midpoint that shakes the group at that point of time, that the equilibrium they are maintaining, the pace they are maintaining, suddenly it has been disrupted, and what should be done to overcome that crisis. Now, at this midpoint of their group life, they experience a midlife crisis, that is they recognize that they are going to have to change the way they operate if they are going to meet their goals. They understand the strong need to change their course of action to overcome that midlife crisis, and if they want to meet the goal, then again they will strategize something again, so that the second phase again equilibrium can be maintained and they can meet the group goal. So, this begins once midlife crisis has been experienced, encountered by the group members, the next phase starts because it requires a change, because they want to exist, they want to survive for their existence. At this time, then groups drop old ways of thinking and adopt new perspectives. That means, when the midlife crisis has been experienced, this makes sure to the group members that whatever way they were working, it will not work in future or in the next course of time, and they have to alter their decisions and the ways of working. So, this calls for change, acceptance and management. Groups then carry out these missions until they reach the end of the phase, and when they show burst of activities needed to complete their work. No doubt, even in the phase 1, they showed interest and burst of activities to achieve the common goal, but because of midlife crisis, they again changed their action decisions, and again they are engaging in new form of activities to reach that common goal. So, according to punctuated equilibrium model, groups go through two stages according to Jersick, which has a midpoint group time together. The first half is a period of equilibrium in which the groups make plans, but accomplishes little. Why? Because they have experienced or encountered midlife crisis. So, whatever plan they had, they could only achieve little. That plan did not allow them to reach the desired goal or the final goal of the group. But once crisis has been encountered, they again tend to change their course of action, their decisions, their strategy, and that strategy in the second phase will lead them to accomplish the goal, that is the deadline. So, this is how punctuated equilibrium model has different opinion or approach that how the group develops. So, there are three phases according to punctuated equilibrium model that how the group develops. It is phase 1, which is a stage of equilibrium, then they experience midlife crisis, which is again a period of change, and again phase 2, which again calls for new changes in the functioning of the group so as to meet the deadline. So, this is how in three phases, phase 1, midlife, and phase 2, this engages the group members to engage in different kind of activities, more adaptations and modifications to meet the deadline or the common objective, and finally the group develops in its own way. This is a graphic representation of the punctuated equilibrium model, that the phase 1 where the group plans and they tend to maintain an equilibrium, halfway is the deadline because there is crisis, and at this point only, at the point of crisis only, they tend to make changes. So, so much of adaptation is required, change in the environment and bringing changes in the functionality of the group, and then again is a new period of change to maintain that equilibrium and reach the goal. So, this is how Jersick has talked about that in what manner a group develops. It is not only about attaining the common objective or goal or the shared goal, it is also about that how the members have moved from one point to the end point while experiencing crisis and changes and maintaining equilibrium that required so much of modification in the behavior of the members as well. This is punctuated equilibrium model. So, according to social psychologists, three types of models have been identified. The first is Tuckman and Jensen's stages of group development. This is one of the most significant approach that is being adopted in organizational behavior and social psychology. Then we have Tubbs system model, which has three elements, that is input, output, throughput, and backed by a feedback mechanism, and it has four components: orientation, conflict, consensus, and closure. And the other is punctuated equilibrium model given by Jersick, which has three phases of group development: phase 1, phase of equilibrium, then midlife changes, and then a period of change to meet the common goal, right. So, this is all about introduction to groups when we talk about group behavior in terms of why people join groups, theoretical foundations that why people join groups, and how groups develop. Next, I will continue in the next discussion. Thank you so much.